Welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here in the studio, Godwin Eduji, Temeklo, Kweku Bako, Randy Abe, and Robert Nia de Klerk. And we will move on to the questions of hacking of the EC system in 2016 that came up, and President Mahama demanding answers because we need to resolve the issues now before we go into the 2020 elections. And the EC chair, Jean Mensah, has also been speaking. She visited multimedia in the course of last week. Was it this week, rather? Okay. And spoke about, you know, foreign entity having absolute and full control of our IT systems, and without the EC having a clue as to what goes on, and some really very interesting claims that she made. But Randy, I'm reminded to correct you that Stephen Appiah went to 2010 World Cup as a general captain.
It's not true.
Okay.
It's not true.
Okay.
It's not true.
You said he went as...
He was a captain of the team.
He was a captain of the team.
Yes, he just didn't start. He wasn't
Okay.
the first 11.
All right.
Ghana never changed its captain at the 2010 World Cup.
All right. Nuruddin,
I was part of the team.
Let me hear you again,
It's not true.
because this is what Randy
It's not
insists. And when I was asking about who is informed really at this time, a quick check on fctables.com. By 22nd of May 2019, Asamoah-Gyan versus Dede Ayew, club competitions, season 2018/2019. Asamoah-Gyan has done 25 matches. Dede has done 40 matches. Goals, Asamoah-Gyan has done 5. They say Dede has done 5. Hat tricks, 0-0 to each person's name. Goals per match, Asamoah-Gyan 0.2. Dede 0.13, 13. Shots per goal, Asamoah-Gyan 2.75, Dede 9.4, and minute per goal, Asamoah-Gyan 91, Dede 524. So those are the facts. I kept asking that question and I wasn't getting direct answers from my guests. Okay. So let's go to the EC. We hear Jean Mensah. She tells us something very interesting. Let's hear that.
The director tells you, Madam, I don't know. We don't have administrative rights to our passwords. We've never had until we came in. And so the system, the biometric data and everything is controlled by external vendors. Nobody has been trained. Our discussions with them are to the effect that our staff are not trainable, and so everything is run by external vendors. Let me give you, these are foreigners. Let me give you and they control our system. They have unlimited access remotely and physically to our systems. Let me give you an example of even the referendum. We have what we call the verification devices, and we had to clean and about 13,000 of them ahead of the referendum last year. And what we say we are cleaning, we just take wipes and then we wipe them, we test them to make sure that it's working, then we put them in the box. We paid $1.7 million for it. We called our IT director. We said to him, Mr. Nunu, we will give you $200,000. Take it with your team and do it. He said, Madam, we don't know how to do it. So you come in there and you go in there, our data center is just about this room. You enter the place, you are furious because you find empty boxes, the place is filthy, wires all over the place, and we are paying $4 million a year to maintain it since 2011. And you ask the IT director, what are we doing? And he says, Madam, I don't know, and nobody told me about it. And that is what the system that we have run to date.
Prior to the elections, we had announced that we're going to use 2 methods of results transmission, the manual process and the electronic results transmission. One of the main benefits of the electronic results transmission is that it would have enabled us to see the results of all the 29,000 polling stations as recommended by the reform committee we set up after the 2012 elections before we declared the final results. Unfortunately, we've had challenges with our electronic results transmission system. We had reason to believe that the system had been compromised, and so we advised our returning officers at the collation centers to stop using it and revert solely to the manual process. So as we speak, we're still waiting results through the manual process to come in, and we're making efforts to make sure that we see the polling station results before the final declaration. The history of our presidential elections in the Fourth Republic in Ghana have been very close. And because of that closeness, we have a duty to ensure that we take our time, we collate the results properly, we ensure that the process of collation remains as inclusive and as transparent as the process of the elections. We want to assure you that we cannot change the results in any way. We cannot manipulate the results.
Right, so you had Jean Mensah, the EC chairperson, and you had Charlotte Osei, the former EC chairperson. And Kweku, before this, the reason that actually brought up the subject for discussion earlier, and we were supposed to do this last week, was that President John Mahama had asked the Electoral Commission to tell us what happened in 2016 when it said its system had been hacked. Legitimate request and for the answers to be produced?
Yes, but I'm not sure about the platform on which that demand was made or request. I'm not sure about that one. President Mahama right now is a hybrid. See, he's a presidential candidate as well as a former president. Very interesting combination. And he's out there now, more or less campaigning. The party has representatives at IPAC. So this particular request, I thought, could have been channeled through the party's representatives to the EC through IPAC for it to be dealt with properly.
But you say it's a legitimate question?
Oh yes, it is, because it became a public issue, an issue of public interest. Let's play back what Madame Charlotte Osei said. And I hold here my Joy Online story dated 15th December 2016.
Right.
It's by Nathan Gadagu and the former deputy commissioner in charge of, is it deputy chairperson?
Corporate affairs.
No, yeah, corporate affairs. That's Madame Georgina Opoku-Amankwa.
Finance and admin.
She was FNA.
Finance and admin.
Georgina was FNA.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, but I think
Operations was
yeah.
the gentleman.
Amadou Sule.
operations, but they
She was
later
finance
Corporate
admin.
affairs.
they changed that thing to be corporate affairs. But you are right that it still embraced finance and administration. I remember this is when it became an issue, and this is what Madame Amankwa was saying. He says our electronic transmission was not even coming. You key in and the figures will change. You key in and the figures will change. Then we said, no, we can't go on with this. Let's abandon it. The good thing was that that was not the primary source. So it was good for us to abandon it. The only problem was that it caused us some delay. We could have done that much earlier than we did. So there was a problem with electronic transmission. But fortunately, because that was not the primary source, they abandoned it and proceeded. The credibility and integrity of the process, for me, was not questioned.
Okay.
And that is why I thought that if President Mahama thought it's still an issue, which it is, and ought to be demystified or answers provided, he ought to have chosen a different channel to do that. When he did what he did, you saw misrepresentations, misreports, and things that came. People even interpreted that to mean that he was alluding to possible rigging of 2016 elections.
Some reported straightforward that he's saying that the 2016 elections were rigged.
Yeah, but a careful scrutiny of what he said obviously showed that he wasn't talking that way, that direct.
Okay.
You know? But that's why I was saying that perhaps the mode of communication of that request perhaps was problematic. I'm not saying it was a fatal thing, but for me, I would have preferred a situation where he would have used the party's reps at IPAC to do it, or the party write formally to the EC that, look, we want this thing done. Then you take away some of the political, noise making.
The EC chairperson then had used the word their system had been compromised. And then on their Twitter page, they had said, quote, respect the integrity and independence of the EC. And we're practically just talking about people they thought were attempting to hack or hacking the system.
Not too long after that.
Now that you have heard what Jean Mensah is saying about they not having control,
there's no relationship.
Okay.
There's no relationship between the two.
All right.
The same My Joy Online story. After and I'm reading, not long after the declaration, the Deputy Communication Director of the EC, Yusuf Ayuba, denied assertion that the EC system was hacked, but admitted that there were challenges with it. He did not exactly say what the challenges were.
Right.
These are the things that why, yes, going back to look into what happened is appropriate. The point about foreigners, Jean is a good friend of mine. I like her. I admire her. But I don't want to hear any Ghanaian talk that way to me.
What do you mean?
Where were we when we were putting down that contract? Where were we? Were we sleeping? Did we go into that contract with our eyes closed? What were we doing? Okay? We signed a contract with them, gave them terms that they must fulfill. I have some minutes, I've intercepted some minutes in terms of the EC and correspondence with STL. And you can't blame the STL. You contracted them to do business. In there, you even talked of the need for them to train your people. They are still, in spite of, there's tension between STL and EC right now. That's the truth. And it's been going on for a while. The STL indicated that from April 2019, they were no longer going to be part of any process. Indeed, the minutes I have here indicate that 2017, the EC held a meeting and the STL had indicated to them that they were no longer interested in managing our systems because of something that happened in 2012. You recall, 2012, a crowd, I suspect it was MPP supporters,
yes, virtually
invaded a certain house, which Obasanjo and the rest had to intervene.
Right.
So it's all here. My view, look, even the funding, election funding itself, a huge percentage is external. Then the technical setup, the infrastructure, the ICT infrastructure, database, was being managed by the STL. That's true. We acquiesced. We endorsed it. And we're paying them for it.
So there's something certainly wrong, because if you recall, Charlotte Osei had similar complaints about this same entity. She also comes and she's complaining.
When Charlotte came in, it's difficult to do disclosures that are not thin. But I remember she tried to see if she could review STL contracts.
One of the problems she had. I think it was renewed before she took office.
And she thought there were problems there. She thought there were problems there. But it was challenged. But the powers that be. So questions were asked as to who and who has an interest in this thing. But my view, look, I'm still studying these documents. It's not everything I'm prepared to say here today for good reasons. But I am not going to blame STL. It is disgusting that we sit here, we are a sovereign nation. We go into signing contracts with our two eyes widely open. So we sit down from 2011 to now, and we are trying to play the foreign card.
Okay, so before I come to Eduji, let's have Randy on this, because I've just seen you itching just too much. Now, here it is.
See, let me read this one. This is a minutes. This is dated 30th June 2017. In attendance was Ms. Georgina Opoku Amankwa, Amadou Sule, Dr. Joseph Amwa, Samuel Tete, I think he's still Benjamin Nunu. He said, Director of Electoral Services commended STLF for managing the database well and said that he should be commended. He noted that they have been able to secure the database against intruders. Who
was speaking again?
This is Benjamin Nunu, Director of IT.
The one
the Director of... Samuel Tete. Samuel Tete, Director of Electoral Services.
Now, find out what the same Samuel Tete is saying today.
Exactly.
That would be changed.
No, check what he's saying today. The same Samuel Tete.
Interesting. Yes. But that's him.
Right. So let's look at the value here. Jean Mensah made an example which is quite disturbing, that they needed to clean them up, and it just by taking some wipes and cleaning some stuff, which they could afford by spending a few hundreds of dollars, but they are taking how much? 1 point something to do that job. When the EC staff, part of the contract is that you train them to be able to do the job, and they could have done the job without any money being paid to them because they are paid by the state. And yet we are paying how much every time for this kind of job?
She unfortunately, she didn't provide a basis for those conclusions that she made. You say that you decided at 200,000 to do the job, and you gave them the money and they said they didn't have the capacity to do that. So how did you reach that conclusion?
And the contract said they ought to have been trained.
No, I'm saying, how did you reach the conclusion that the 200,000 was enough?
She certainly would have been advised.
Because the 200,000 being enough is also taking into cognizance the fact that you have skilled manpower to do that. That is how come you could reach the 200,000.
She gives you an indication of what is constituted, what the job is constituted.
All I'm saying
she
is
talks about just cleaning, taking wipes and getting the thing clean.
I am not in a position.
Telling you.
I'm not in a position to substantiate what she's saying. Listen, leadership is extremely important. She's come into office. She's looked at contracts. She's looked at what is happening. She feels strongly that there's something wrong. She should act. She should deal with it. I'm fine with she telling us all the issues. If STL has a counter to it, it is also their responsibility.
You are being given an indication that this was part of the problems that Charlotte Osei faced, and she was sort of hounded out of the place. So won't she be careful about it?
The point I'm just making, you see, I have a problem when people in leadership open the book of Lamentations, and I've said that several times. I don't have a problem you giving me a basis for a decision, that because of A, B, C, D, I have taken this decision, I'm taking this decision, I'm fine with it. But I don't like the opening of the book of Lamentations. And when it is even situated to suggest that it is a response to President John Mahama, then it becomes even worrying. You know, Kweku was asking where he said it, and and Kweku, I was just checking the details. He actually was delivering a lecture at the Business School of Oxford University,
right,
on the topic democracy and elections in contemporary Africa.
Okay.
So he was delivering a lecture at Oxford University, and the topic was democracy and elections in contemporary Africa. So context.
Okay.
Then, so he says that, he goes on to say that, I just want to find the appropriate quote.
Let's hear the president speak. Please play the president's sound. Let's hear him directly.
Commissioner announced some time after the vote count that the EC's IT system had been compromised. And I stated that I'm not aware that they have investigated why it got compromised. And at least if they have, they haven't shared those findings with us. That it was important for us to find out, what had happened so that we forestall any dispute around the IT system in the next election, 2020. And so if the EC commissioner is listening to me, I think that if they have investigated, they should let us know, what compromised the system and what steps are being taken to safeguard the system being compromised again. As far as I'm aware, the absolute results of the presidential elections have been gazetted, but my understanding is that the breakdown by constituencies and polling stations has not been done. We need that to be able to analyze the results in order that we can prepare for the next election. And so we'll urge the EC to gazette the results in totality as quickly as possible so that we have access to it.
So, like Kweku says, this is legitimate, harmless question.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that if you then put into context the occasion.
But was this the lecture or this post-lecture?
No, this is it. This is it. You saw some people there. This was a setup.
Okay.
So this is what it was. Yes.
It's a Q&A.
Yes.
That's it.
So this is what it was. So he was speaking on this theme, democracy and elections in Africa. You know, and then he gave a Ghanaian example. Now, the things he stated, were they factual or not? You've played Madame Charlotte Osei, who has read the deputy chairperson and the deputy communications director, all alluding to the same things. So if we still are going to have an electronic system and we've been told that it was compromised, we need to know who compromised it. And if you refer to the tweets that you read out, it meant that even at a point, the Electoral Commission itself believed that some unethical people were hacking into their system and they were pleading with them to stop. You understand what I'm saying? So if these issues are not resolved as in us knowing what happened and what steps have been taken to avert the possibility of a recurrence.
Yeah, Randy.
Yeah.
Agreed. But the compromise of the transmission, the electronic transmission, did not affect the integrity of the results that were produced by the election.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure he said that.
No, he didn't. But
Yes.
his last point about the need for the gazetting of the constituency results in order for us to determine, he was asking for something extra.
No, he said for analysis. That's what he
Towards
said.
the next election.
Because you see, my understanding, for example, by law, is the EC expected to gazette the results with a breakdown?
Consistency, yes.
Yes.
They do. And
So
they haven't done it?
No. That's what he's saying.
Are you sure?
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
Let me bring Eduje here. And is it that the president is not satisfied with what Yusuf Ayuba, the communications deputy communications director of the EC, said at the time, after they are speaking about the system being compromised and all? He said, we had challenges in transmission. I wouldn't say it was a hacking. I don't think it was an official statement from the EC that our system had been hacked.
You know, I mean, more importantly, I think that what H.C. John Dramani Mahama said relates to what the Electoral Commission itself, through the chairperson, Mrs. Charlotte Osei, had earlier communicated. For me, those questions are very legitimate. If you recall, and
no, but let's keep the chronology. He had,
so that's what I'm saying.
They have said that, and I will refer to their Twitter page and the things they said. The full statement on their Twitter page at the time was this: we deplore the attempt to hack the EC website. Please respect the integrity and independence of the EC. Then later, the deputy communications come to say it was not really hacking.
You know,
and
I would be correct to say at this point that at least there was an attempt to hack, for which reason the Electoral Commission itself decided more or less to beg these unethical hackers to stop whatever it is that they were. And that's exactly what I think that, from what H.E. John Dramani Mahama indicated, is a question of what do we do to ensure that we're not going to have a repeat of this in 2020. And it is something that might be taken in good faith. Because at all times, we want to build a robust IT infrastructure for our elections. But you see, there's a more serious issue that Mrs. Jane Mensah is raising at this point. And I think it is...
Hold on 1 minute for me. I understand that we have a little difficulty with your microphone. They will check it out for us. Now, where do you... And Professor Stephen Kukwasa asked the question, what is not controlled by foreigners in this country anyway? So what's the big deal?
Something. Yesterday, I had
some very, very important telephone discussions with some of the key players in this whole discussion. And I'm talking key, you can put your mind to it.
Okay.
In this discussion. From both sides of the divide, if you like. I have come to a certain conclusion based on what I heard and the discussions I had. While the current dispensation believes that it has a genuine concern, extremely genuine concern of what it is raising, the previous dispensation is of the opinion that the current dispensation misses the point. But let me tell you what I think. How did the previous body leave office? We all know. In a place as critical as the Electoral Commission, whether you like it or not, some way, somehow, the heartbeat of our politics. We had a group leaving under the circumstances under which they left. We all know, had to leave. A new one comes in, and one of them in the discussion with me yesterday says that there is nothing that has been passed on between that group that just left and the group that is in office. So the group that just left, where they thought it necessary, sort of banded together a few things and sent it, go and give it to this person. The group that has come in has not received some official communication, documentation, etc., with respect to all these biometric things that we are talking about. And this is the most shocking part. I am told that there is, as far as our IT thing which Jimensa is raising is concerned, there are some passwords or something which are known passwords by only, I think, 2 people in the previous dispensation. That Georgina, which he mentioned, let me call her Georgina, she was my mate in law school, so we are cool. Who he mentioned, etc. Even as deputies, they don't have access to it. It is believed, and I have to ask Jean, who was my boss at IEA again, so I have to deal with this quite well, that unless they have been given some sort of access by STL as we speak now, that they may not even have the passwords we are talking about. So look at the scenario.
Those passwords now are in the possession of this
STL.
No, yes, but perhaps it's a tricky area.
No, that is what I'm saying.
Okay, so you finish your point.
So that's the point. I'm saying that it's a tricky area. And it's a tricky area which I'm saying has been occasioned by the fact of the nature of the exit, the lack of, say, handing over, and the assumption by a new group who then do not are sort of being thrown into the deep end to figure it out. To figure out the swimming by themselves. So
2 people in the previous regime who have left had the password.
That is what I am told.
Who are they? The chairperson.
It has to be the chairperson and some other officer.
And some other officer.
Yes.
And they needed to pass it on to this new group.
Well, the discussion is that
passwords that cannot be recreated by the STL.
That's another question we must ask.
Okay.
Because even when I try to find out from these key players about the passwords and the manner of change, the answer was that it is possible that it may be changed, but there's some sort of number of people supposed to be involved in all this participation and etc. And Mr. Nunu's name is mentioned. I'm giving a certain background as to who, a number of people, even before Mr. Nunu, somebody came in time of ID, I think he got sick and died. Before that, somebody got sick and was unable to function, and that's how come we got to the Mr. Nunu point. So Jimensa says Mr. Nunu and Co did not know how to do what they were going to do. I'm told that as far back as Afari-Gyan's time, even as far back, there were issues about this IT thing and the backup and the Kweku's reference to some people even marching down there. And I'm told Afari-Gyan diffused that tension by saying anything that happens here, whether you are threatening to burn down the issue, whatever, we have a certain backup covered by this password we are talking about, which is limited to a certain exclusive group of people somewhere in Accra, which I think I was told, but it's not wise for me to say, somewhere in Ghana, I should say, and also outside the shores of Ghana. And I'm told that, look, the politicians, whether I like it or not, are equally accountable and to blame for some of these potential, I want to see how to get around these things. I'm told by people, the grand people, that there are always attempts on us. It's a power game. And the pushback has always been that the system is created in such a way that the attempt to disrupt something may not work. So somebody is of the opinion again that even if it's true that there was an attempt to hack, and the reports that was given us about compromise, however, it is not going through whatever, was said that it is possible that even if there was any such an attempt, the system that had been created will reject that thing and make it difficult to go through. Both sides then agree with me that the change is not going to be easy. And therefore, rigging by numbers, etc., at that stage, it's not going to be easy for these things. But I concluded after my conversations yesterday that there are certain things Jean doesn't know coming from the previous entity. There are certain things she sees which she thinks that, oh, 4 million perhaps is a bit too much. 1 point this is a bit too much and all. And so I'm trying to correct the system. At the end of the day, I think that they both are operating from some sort of lack of a clear view of what is happening. And I fault the system. How do we have an EC of all places where it is not even mandatory for you to leave behind this and that, even if you say don't come and sit in front of her and pass it into her hands, but be required to make that thing, a show to all of us. So we seem to be in a quandary. In the hands of the foreigners, well, I don't know. It looks like Jean and Co are ready to terminate the contract, right? At this moment with STL.
Both sides appear not to be ready to work
with each other.
Sure.
But the move was made by the EC. At least I think that it wasn't a matter of STL saying, okay, here I am, I'm leaving.
Well,
and there's a certain UNDP.
That part too is tricky.
It's tricky, huh?
All right,
but let me read this thing.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to get back to Eduji, and you know, I had referred to earlier about long before now, the UNDP that was supposed to be sponsoring this, having concerns about these things. And I remember when the NPP raised it, we started to say, like now, the NDC is raising the critical issues at the EC, the NPP doesn't seem to be bothered. And then they say, why are you spokesperson for the EC? The same ball game is going on. How do we take these things off and focus on the problems and resolve them? But let Kuku just read that portion first.
This is a letter dated 18 February 2019. It is from Jean Mensah to STL. The first paragraph. I refer to your letter dated the 1st of February, which you submitted to the Electoral Commission with the passwords to our database. Now listen to the specific. Access to our passwords for the Electoral Commission's database. We find your claim that you have always insisted on releasing the passwords to the Electoral Commission surprising. On assumption of office, it became known to us that you had full control of our database and systems, and that no member of the Commission had access to our information through data. We made it clear to you that it was grievous to hold on to the Commission's passwords. You explained that the reason you held on to the passwords was because the previous Commission had requested that you keep them. It was then that you made the attempt to hand over the passwords to the Commission. We informed you at that point that the Commission was in the process of recruiting professional staff into the IT department and that you should hold on until capable staff were employed to take over from you. We noted that simply presenting the passwords to the Commission members who had no technical experience in IT was not a cure to the problem. We emphasized that it was not a physical experience in IT. We emphasized that it was not a physical handing over of passwords, but rather the handing over of our database that was critical. Therefore, to state that you have tried unsuccessfully to hand over passwords to us is not accurate. We have always sought to own and control our databases and systems, and the request to hand over the passwords emanated from us. Talk to STL. Their view too is that no, they tried to give, and we said, hold on, because we haven't trained people who will handle it. And I've heard something. The Ghanaian elements also are not comfortable with them being in charge of the passwords because they think that if something went wrong, we would politicize it and create problems for them. Last point, this is also from the same 30 June 2017 minutes, coming from the Deputy Chair, Operations, Amadou. Confirmed the STS besides the data disaster center at Sapema. They have a copy of the database in Israel. He said the STS thinks anything that affects the data affects them, And also anything that affects their integrity also affects the integrity of their country.
Okay, so SAPEMA in Israel has been released by you.
Okay. All right. So, so continue. But I must first apologize that we experienced a couple of minutes HS on radio. Please forgive us. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, with what Mr. Baku even gave us, it actually puts the matter in its proper perspective. But you note that in communicating this response to the good people of this country, Madam Jane Mensah obviously glossed over these things and created the impression, watching the video, that it is as though the Israelis have absolute control over the database. If you have a database in SAPEMA, in Ghana, and you create the impression that foreigners, quote, are in total control, where from this communication, as of 2019...
Don't you get the import of the communication?
Please, I'm coming. As of
they don't have the passwords.
Please. These people are willing to give it to you.
Yes.
You create the impression...
But because of you, NDC, MPP, they are afraid to take the passwords.
Can I come there? Can I come there?
Because if problem comes, you say, this person has a password, they have gone into it.
It's good you brought in the idea of NDC, MPP. And I recall vividly, where, for instance, was in opposition, the MPP made a claim that Superlock has a sister company called Amandi, and that the previous NDC administration had given several contracts to Amandi. And for that matter, Superlock is more favorable towards the NDC. Without knowing that the first time STL came into this country, at least Mr. Kweku will know the circumstances under which they came, under Mr. Kufo. You understand? Then the impression is created that Superlock is more biased or favorable towards the NDC, which is not the case. So it is this suspicion, that Madame Jane Mensah is operating with. At this point, she had made up her mind, because from the information I'm picking, there are some persons within government, quote, who have also lined up persons to give IT solutions to the Electoral Commission. Absolutely. And so, in order to delegitimize...
That's even what has affected the number of registration places.
The government is absolute.
So in order to delegitimize Superlock, to ground this so-called, this whole idea that the biometric system that Superlock had deployed so far is obsolete, and that you need a top-up facial recognition system to build up the system. We do know, basic IT knowledge, that there's no IT solution that is forever. At all times, what you
STL
do...
itself also, 2017, recommended that the whole system should be over. No, they said the equipment was obsolete.
Yes, absolutely. That's what you do. Even my mobile phone, periodically, the software, I upgrade it. What it means is that every IT solution, at one time, you need to make an upgrade. So that, for instance, if you are even saying that the reason for the upgrade is that you want to introduce a facial recognition technology, we do know that facial recognition and biometrics, in terms of your fingerprint impression, fingerprint is always superior than facial recognition, because two faces at any time can mess up. But we know, even identical twins, their fingerprint impression will forever be different. So where you want to create the grounds to get somebody out, and you put this information out there, the uninformed may be thinking, when you say...
I like that point, the uninformed.
Absolutely. So when you say foreigners are in control of our election database, what do you mean in fact? Is it the case that they can compromise or determine who becomes our president? And so I believe that as the EC chair, in putting this information out there in public, you need to manage that information.
And you think she didn't manage?
She never did.
And you think that this is clearly some propaganda to damage STL?
Absolutely.
So that a new contract can be had.
To make grounds for a new contractual. And look, I have had the benefit of looking at the budgets approved by the Special Budget Committee headed by the Majority Leader of Parliament. And if you look at the figures, There are real issues of procurement, and whoever controls those procurement issues is in control of our electoral process, whether you like it or not.
Okay.
Something. I mean,
right,
you should just give me 1 minute to just round up on this. I want to believe that anything that at the end of the day will ensure that we'll have incident-free election, all of us must get on board. But there are real issues of suspicion. And Madam Jane Mensah should calm down in communicating this.
Thank you very much. I give Ni just a minute because he wanted to make a point. Just a minute, and then we proceed on. Oh, you're okay?
Oh, no, it's okay.
Thank you very much. Just one or two of your messages, then we'll take a break. From Ilyasu in Tamale says that, but we were supposed to deal with the bank crisis and the claims of recovery that is being made, and some 50 directors and so on to undergo prosecution and so on and so forth. We couldn't do that.
But
definitely
it will be relevant next week.
Yeah, definitely, like Kweku is saying, it's still relevant. It's still relevant. We will try. We'll try, and then we'll return and deal with that matter. Also, because interestingly, there are new developments about this situation. We are learning of a court that has given a ruling, if you read in the graphic yesterday, on the Unibank matter, and there's a retired Supreme Court justice who is going to determine whether the revocation was proper. Revoking their license was proper. So a lot of things are going to happen. Right. Yes, quickly.
So I have this private message from Jane Mensah. Okay. And I said, well, do you want me to read this? So let me just read this on her behalf. She says, we have nothing against foreigners. All we are saying is that the extent of control is dangerous. After all, we have just put in place an international competitive tendering. And we simply want knowledge to be transferred and capacity built.
Are foreigners excluded from this?
Thank you. Ilyasu in Tamale says the president demonstrated. Sorry, gentlemen. Sorry. Ilyasu in Tamale says the president demonstrated the father qualities in him by intervening to get Jan rescind his decision. When will football realize that football issues have to do with action on the pitch and not spiritual? Kweku Owusu Mensah in Germany says, don't forget there is a rumor that Kwesi Appiah is doing this because a prophet told him that only you can bring the cup to the country. Ibrahim Kopa says that first of all, the decision by the president to intervene for Asamoah Gyan to rescind his decision does not amount to interference with the work of the president. Who next? Let's go to the next message. Right, Nana Akwesi Asafueje in Legon Law School says that I have seen an interview of the president in which he says, quote, some things are left to the determination of the judiciary only, unquote. In that same vein, I believe some things should be left to Coach Kwesi Appiah to decide. The president means well, but it goes a long way to undermine the discipline in the team.
Apparently, the president left the captaincy issue to the coach.
So apparently the president didn't deal with the captaincy issue at all. It was just about the resignation as announced. So God willing, thankfully, we should return to deal with the bank crisis and the matters of job losses and recoveries, and those who are running the school of thought that the monies that are being spent, that was spent, could have actually been used to get the banks back on their foot. We'll deal with all of those matters, God willing, next week. My guest, Abdul Malik Kwekubako, editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper, Eduji Kujo Tamaklo Godwin. He is a lawyer and member NDC National Communication Team. Randy Abe is host Good Morning Ghana, Metro Television. And Robert Ni Ade Clegg, he is a lawyer and loves sports and has peculiar interests in corporate matters, including the banking situation. We hope that he will agree to join us next week. Thank you very much. My outfit, as always, is by Latida.